Mrs. 토마토다. This video was originally something I was not planning on making because I have a lot going on right now and I kind of feel overwhelmed. Nothing bad, you know, it's good, life is good, it's just I have a lot of shit to do and I just kind of feel overwhelmed. But it kind of felt wrong to do because it is my first convention of 2023 and also because I completely changed my whole setup. Now, one of the reasons why I changed my setup this year is in hopes of a better acceptance rate to conventions. Let me explain. In the beginning of 2022, my Setsukon setup was my favorite in terms of aesthetics, but functionality-wise, I had a bit of issues. So as the year progressed, I focused more on functionality. And what I mean by functionality is like being able to reach items, being able to identify items, simplifying the price range, I guess making things more streamlined. However, as I focused on that throughout the year, my aesthetics suffered a lot in my opinion. I don't think it really affected my sales at the convention, but the reason why the lack of aesthetics bothered me is because not being accepted into certain conventions. Now, I said in a previous video, there could be a million reasons why you are not accepted into a convention. It could be that your style is not what they're looking for. It could be that they already have enough artists doing whatever medium or whatever style that you are doing. It could be that maybe you had beef with somebody in the council. It could be that they prioritize local artists more than out-of-state artists. And it could also just be that you're not a good artist. Like, who knows really what the reason is, but of all the conventions that I was not accepted to, there was a common denominator. And that common denominator was booth photo submissions. Some of the bigger conventions that I did apply to, they required a booth photo, so your display photo, and I was not expecting that. The only like decent picture I had to send them was my OMG Con setup, which wasn't bad, you know, but still the aesthetics suffered. The booth photo might not even be the reason why I wasn't accepted, but just saying that it was a common denominator, it's the only thing that I can actually focus and change on currently. I think if I apply with a nicer aesthetic and I still get rejected, then I would have to find a different common denominator and, you know, work on that. But for now, all I have is the aesthetics. So I bought new shit I'm gonna share with you guys, and I threw more money at this hoping that it looks better, and I think it does look better, but there were some sacrifices that have to be made. There are 3 goals that I wanted to hit. 1 being functionality, 2 being aesthetics, and 3 being quick setup time and quick teardown time. But I found that you can't really hit all 3. You can hit 2 of them, but you can't hit 1 of them. So here's my chart. Aesthetics, quick setup, and functionality. If you have all 3 of these, I would call it basically a unicorn. Beginning of 2022, my setup, I would say, was aesthetics and quick setup. And if you have these 2, you lose out on functionality. But towards the end of 2022, I had functionality and quick setup time. And because I had this, I lost out on aesthetics. As I was remaking my setup, aesthetics and functionality is what I focused on. I realized I would lose out on quick setup, which is okay because, oh, I forgot to mention, this convention is for the Louisville Arcade Expo. It's a 3-day arcade gaming convention. I've never done it before, but it is a local convention. The hours are a little bit crazy. So the Louisville Arcade Expo, thankfully, even though it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday convention, I can go in on Thursday and set up. So for this convention specifically, time is not really an issue. I can spend the whole day building it. So I'll show you guys the new things that are going on. Here's the setup as a whole. And as you can see, I bought new grid wires. They're white and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're a foot each, which makes it 7 foot. Now these grids are smaller. The old ones I had were about 13.25 inches, I think. Then I got these jewelry hanging acrylics. So my charms are hung like this, the shorter ones in the front and the longer ones in the back. If you can see, the jewelry display is hung by command hooks, just like how I used to display my cork panels in the past. These acrylic displays were not very cheap. They were $25 for 2 of them, and I have another 2 over there, which makes that $50 already. Like, what the fuck? So for the $10 charms, everything is just soft tape right now, but for the $10 charms, I bought these because I think they were 4 for maybe $16. I would have liked to get more of these, but I wasn't sure if I would like these as much. In the future, I might buy some more to replace this section here. I hooked these also with the tiny command hooks. And then I have some, you know, more shit here and there. Hanging up some other shit here and there. I got some B-grade shit here and there. And I got some other shit here and there. I also changed my logo thing. This is like just photo printed. And then I taped this clip on it. I have to figure out a better way to tape it. But this plastic part is made from like a cake display stand thing, and I used a hot knife to cut it into the shape of this. And then I got some cheap vines on Amazon, and I bought these little tomato things on AliExpress, and I like put it on. The last thing I want to show you guys is the back side. I got this fabric from Joann's. I got it 50% off, so it was a fucking steal. And then I just clipped them on. But the reason why I have the fabric was because you can just absolutely see everything on the other side. I needed something to block the view, but not completely block the view, because I also want to see what's on the other side. Oh, and here is like a little display, so people know what to do with these. I think this took me about 4 to 5 days to work on. And now today I'm gonna just pack everything into my luggage. In this pile we have our displays, and in this pile we have our inventories. My whole setup fits perfectly in this suitcase. I kind of organized it where the things I need first are easily available at the front, and then the things I'll need last or like towards the bottom, and then all the items for display and tools are in here. Tomorrow I'm gonna go over my list, make sure I packed everything, and then I also have a to-do list for my setup, because once I'm at the convention, I kind of get panicky. I also printed out a few pictures of the items in my booth just so I can like write the prices on them, so we don't get too confused from the back of the booth. So on Thursday, I arrived at the convention, and immediately I was impressed with the quality and the cute details on the place card and the lanyard slash badge. You can just tell they put a lot of effort and thought into this. The Tetris blocks on the lanyard spell LAX, which stands for Louisville Arcade Expo, not the LAX LA Airport, which I keep getting mixed up in my mind. I got my setup order list ready. It really did help to calm my nerves and do things one at a time. Like, my mind wasn't scatterbrained and my emotions weren't overwhelmed like it usually is during the beginning of a setup. Because this convention is only a 10-minute drive from my house, I didn't completely tear down my wire grids. I kept the 2 big side wire cubes intact and just Tetrised them in the back of the seat of my car. I really loved not having to rebuild everything from scratch, and I swear I think this saved me about 30 minutes of work. So one of the 2 guys who run this show is named Corey, and Corey is the one who greeted me and gave me the 411 on how things go, and he ended up being the one that I would hunt down if I had any questions. I want to say Corey is fucking amazing, and my husband and I are huge fans of him. I don't quite know who the other guy is, unfortunately. I didn't get to meet him, I think. But to us, Corey is the face of this convention. And the reason why I'm mentioning him right now is because as I was setting up my grids, he came by and gave me shit about them, like in a joking way. But it did make me think of the perspective that these wire grids are a basic bitch item for for Artist Alley. I mean, that's also why I drew them on my Artist Alley booth cosplay, right? Like it's a detail that's associated with Artist Alley, I think. But what other options do we really have, you know? And I want to repeat that he was just joking around. He did tell me that his wife used to use them when she did shows as well. And as much as I love how these grids work so well for my display, I do really hate that no matter how well I try to put it together, it's always wobbly. Like I try to make sure everything's in and connected or the base is secure, but once you build up the whole thing, it just gets wibbly wobbly. If you've used these before, you might know what I mean. And the only fix I have to that problem is to just keep shoving folded paper underneath until it stabilizes. I have been thinking about buying clamps, like table clamps, to just clamp the sides, but I have taken no action on that thought. Anyways, after 3 hours, I finished the front setup, which was a lot faster than I thought it would take. Now, it's time to work on the back side, the behind the scenes, such as organizing my purchase packets, inventories, tools, hanging up my price references, etc. And this is what the back looks like when it's done. So this table is 8 foot, which means that technically I could fit 8 grids, right? Since each grid is a foot. But I am glad that I went with 7 grids instead because I think 8 might like be barely coming off of the sides of the table. Other than the table size, this con gives you so much space in general, like around the sides. I don't think I've ever had this much space at any convention. I felt wildly spoiled not having to suck in my stomach and squeeze through the space between my table and my neighbor's table just to walk to the bathroom. Once my setup was done, I covered up my table with the blanket and headed home. I arrived like 30 minutes before opening to set up my new contactless square reader. The one I had before was the small free one, but this one you have to actually pay for it, you have to buy it. However, I wanted to get this one because last year I saw Mitten Apple use it and they made it into a bracelet with Velcro straps, and all the customer had to do was simply tap or insert their card or phone and the transaction was done. So I ripped off their idea using things that I had lying around the house, which ended up being this slap bracelet and clear packaging tape. I know it's not as nice as Mitten Apple's Velcro version, but work with what you got. I did bring an activity book to do. We have two because one is for me and the other one is for my husband to fill out tomorrow because I am tabling alone today. Things did start out pretty slow for me. Actually, I noticed that a lot of the people who first came in were, my apologies for assuming your gender, but they were men wearing black rock band shirts and ponytails. It was just a very dominant trait. And the thing is that they would start at the table near the door and walk around looking at each table, but as soon as it was my table's turn, they all walked around it, jumping to the next table. And I do admit my table doesn't quite fit the aesthetics of the other vendors, you know? And if it's not obvious, those are not my target audience, right? But the walk around was just so noticeable. I started feeling really insecure, thinking like, I don't belong here, I shouldn't be here, I don't deserve the spot, what the fuck am I doing? I need to go home. I wasn't really worried about the profits, I was just worried about being in this space. But at that moment, Corey was making rounds, checking up on all the vendors, and he stopped by my table asking me how things were going, and I told him my observations. But Corey was so comforting. He told me, like, don't worry, that later in the evening, especially on Saturday, is gonna be family heavy, and there's gonna be a lot more females and kids. And at that moment, what he said really calmed me down and gave me confidence. Like, his words made me truly feel like I was welcomed here. But just like he said, later that day, there were a lot of females and kids, and there were a lot of males who didn't avoid my table. Like, it was a completely different vibe by the evening. So by the end of day 1, I had actually already made back my table cost plus extra. Least to say, I was feeling good. Saturday morning started out with a guy who misread my shop sign as Tomatada. And he explained that he thought it was like Tomatada, which is kind of a cute idea for a business name to have tada incorporated into it, like Nike tada, Pepsi Cola tada, Chihuahua tada. And then I met these lovely people who recognized my shop from YouTube. And because my husband was here today to help me out, I was able to walk around and capture some footage of the convention. I was absolutely blown away at how they transformed the space. Oh, I forgot to mention this before, but if you buy an entrance ticket, all the games here are free to play. You just have to wait your turn. Also, they sell beer and food, of course, but I've never seen alcohol being sold at a convention before. The Louisville Arcade Expo has like a variety of games going on. They had pinball machines, which you can buy if you have that kind of income. They had a bunch of arcade games. They had console games. They had this stage in the back. So this guy right now is doing like a comedy stand-up thing, and I think this is also the stage that they do the cosplay contest at. And as you can see, they also had cosplayers. They had computer games, which reminded me of like LAN parties back in high school. They had prize games. The footage here gets cut off, but this guy actually made it into the prize hole. That's what she said. Also, I am so sad that I didn't get to see this in person. I must have missed a room or something, but I found out through the convention's Instagram. They had like this Mario Kart thing that just looks so freaking cool. And while I was out here, I did quickly play a few games where no one was waiting in line. But when I switched with my husband so he can go out and explore and play a few games too, he disappeared for like 3 hours, okay? But when he came back, it looked like he was having such a good time that, you know, I couldn't be mad at him. And even though the hours were a bit brutal, being able to play different games and having really fun booth neighbors helped us survive.
Because she's old. But I didn't want you to cry. Because you keep calling me old. I'm not calling you old. Age is calling you old.
Oh my god.
You're so mean. I'm not mean. I'm stating facts.
I hope my camera caught that comment.
No. Yesterday she called me a loser for no reason. I did not. Yeah, her husband told me. No, I said a loser. Why am I a lizard?
Now, concluding day 2, I want to let you guys know that sales were absolutely bumping. Sunday was a bit slower compared to Saturday and Friday, but sales were still really good. Corey kept popping in here and there, checking up on all the vendors, which I appreciate. And by the way, his staff and like the people on the chair or the people in the committee, I'm not sure like what they're called, but they were also freaking amazing, super nice as well. Some of them even came up to check on us to see if we needed something as well. Overall, everybody was giving such good vibes. Sunday hours are shorter, so sadly, it felt like closing time came way too soon. I mean, honestly, we were physically exhausted from the lack of sleep, but it was just so much fun, you know? So it was kind of sad to be leaving. I am happy to report though that the new setup did not extend the teardown time. It only took like 30 minutes total, and we were already off getting Panda Express. Hey guys, so it's been quite some time since the Louisville Arcade Expo. The LAX was back in March and now it is September. I'm so sorry it took this long, but there's a few things that I wanted to still talk about. First, I want to say this was my most profitable convention so far, gross and net profit. My best record before was Anime St. Louis, gross profit wise, but now it's the Louisville Arcade Expo, and on top of that, my expenses were very low since I didn't have to get hotel or travel very far, so my net profit is also a lot higher. However, I did have one problem, which is like not really a problem, but it is a problem. And that problem is that the Louisville Arcade Expo wiped out like half of my inventory. And that's a good thing, right? It means I sold a lot. But the problem is here because I had another convention the month after that, and another one the month after that, and another one the month after that. And so basically, after every convention, I was just trying to play catch up and to like replenish my inventory, and it was kind of chaotic for me because that's kind of not how I work. I like to take my time making pieces and put them through testing to see how like they endure, but I wasn't able to quite do that. I wanted to try doing a lot more conventions this year, which is why I had one for March, April, May, and June, and I was even gonna sign up for one in July and August, but I'm glad I didn't. I thought it would be doable, but I didn't put into consideration that my items would sell so well, because I think the new display really helped sell a lot more than before. Maybe this setup was a little bit too effective. But, you know, once again, I want to say that it's a good thing. It's just that I think I gotta plan a little bit more wiser next year. So I'm gonna try to do a convention every other month instead of every month. And as for the other 3 conventions that I did so far this year, I didn't film those because I felt like it would have been the same content over and over again at this point. I started this Artist Alley vlog to kind of document my journey and growth. And I went through a lot of trial and error, which is why I feel like the previous Artist Alley vlogs, they were all kind of different from each other. I know, like, filmography wise, they weren't the best, but my experience through each of those conventions, I learned a lot on how to change things with my display. But since the development of my new setup this year, I've been really satisfied with it, and I kind of have nothing new to report to you guys. In terms of display, I kind of stopped buying new items for it. Like before, whenever I would go into Daiso, I would go in specifically looking for things that might improve my display, and not all of them were winning items, you know. Some of them I don't know what the fuck to do with it. I just grabbed shit. But now I don't have that mindset anymore because I kind of feel like I have everything. I'll only buy items if like I know 100% sure that it'll come in handy. The only reason why I change up my display a little bit for each convention is either because of the different table sizes. Like some are 6 foot and some are 8 foot, so I want to accommodate all the space, and it depends on the items that I am actually pushing out for this convention. But essentially the base is the same, the framework is the same. I am really happy and satisfied with my current display, and I do get a lot of compliments on it. Setup does take an hour or 2 longer, but sacrifices, man, it's totally fine. And I've realized what I really like about my setup now is the shopping experience that it hopefully gives you guys. I personally love going into stores that have like a lot of accessories and knickknacks and just browsing through everything. So that's the kind of experience that I want to emulate with my shop. I know it's a table, it's a booth, so it might be a little bit different, but I'm hoping that's what it does. There are also a few things about conventions in general that I learned this year. I wanted to share like the info with you guys, but that would make this video just way too long. It's already pretty long, I think. So here is a bullet point of those thoughts. If you guys want, I can make a separate video explaining these points. Just let me know in the comments below. I have gotten a few requests and suggestions to start like a review series about conventions, but I am not going to, because my opinion and experience will be a lot different than everybody else's. There's like hundreds of vendors and artists at each convention, and we're all not gonna unanimously unanimously have the same opinions, except for how shitty sales were at the Indiana Comic Con on Friday. But I'll give an example. If you go to a state fair, one person might have a lot of fun and an amazing time and maybe meet their soulmate at this fair. They'll rate it 10 out of 10. But another person at the same fair on the same day might have a terrible time. A kid could have spilled their ice cream on this person and then they ended up having a heat stroke and going to the ER. That person would rate it 1 out of 10. Same event, same day, same time, totally different experiences, and that's probably why it wouldn't be very good for me to do reviews on conventions. I mean, I've been at conventions where I personally thought it was kind of bad, but somebody else thought it was great. And then I've also been at conventions where I think it's such a great convention, but somebody else was just shit talking mad about it. So it's just like really just too subjective. Also, each artist's priorities might not be the same. I mean, I love money, but my priority is actually just having fun. And if it's really, really fun, despite the, profits, like, I'm gonna give it a good rating. The profits is like the cherry on top of the cake. It could be there, it doesn't have to be there. I got the whole fucking cake. Anyways, thank you guys so much for following me on this growth. I think the only journey that I still have to go through is getting accepted into more conventions and figuring out what other common denominators are getting me rejected and trying to improve on that. If there's something I have to change significantly in the future, I will maybe make a vlog about that. So until next time, bye-bye!